All right, 2 Kings chapter 9, lesson 58, Jehu is anointed. And we see a little bit of an interesting little twist with Elijah and Elisha. Elijah had been taken to heaven, and we kind of finished up Elisha. We'll see how they're still involved here. But 2 Kings chapter 9, hopefully you're at 2 Kings chapter 9, but we have to go back just a few verses in 2 Kings chapter 8, starting there at verse 25, because it tells about a brief reign. We know that we had Ahab and Jezebel. They were married. They had a daughter, wicked Athaliah. Okay? And she married the king of Judah. He's dead. Okay? So we see what happens here. Verse 25. In the 12th year of Joram, the son of Ahab, king of Israel, did Ahaziah, the son of Jehoram, king of Judah, begin to reign. 22 years old was Ahaziah when he began to reign, and he reigned 1 year in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Athaliah, the daughter of Omri, king of Israel, or Ahab. And he walked in the way of the house of Ahab, and did evil in the sight of the Lord, as did the house of Ahab. For he was the son-in-law of the house of Ahab. And he went with Joram, the son of Ahab, to war against Hazael, king of Syria, in Ramoth Gilead. And the Syrians wounded Joram, and King Joram went back to be healed in Jezreel of the wounds which the Syrians had given him at Ramah, when he fought against Hazael, king of Syria. And Ahaziah, the son of Jehoram, king of Judah, went down to see Joram, the king of Ahab, in Jezreel, because he was sick. So again, we've got to show our web here. We've got Ahab and Jezebel, who have a daughter, Athaliah. And then over here we've got King Jehoram. Actually, I should put it like this. So here you've got Israel, and here you've got Judah. And these two now marry. So now you've joined the house of Israel with the house of Judah. And they have a son, Ahaziah. So Ahaziah would have called Ahab and Jezebel grandpa and grandma. Okay? And so you have now a connection there between the line of Judah and the line of Israel. And you have this man now, Ahaziah is on the throne. These are all dead. And Athaliah, she holds a lot of power. Okay, she holds a lot of power. And it might. Anyways, so Ahab's son and Jezebel's son, we'll put down here, Joram. Use that name instead of Jehoram. His name was Jehoram, but we often use Joram. They are now kings at the same time, and this would be his uncle. Ahaziah would say, Uncle Joram, because it's his mother's brother. Okay, he would say, Uncle Joram. So, there's relation here. And that's where things happen there, where he went with Joram, the son of Ahab, to war against Hazael. And Joram is wounded. Okay? And so because he's wounded, he's laid up in bed. Okay? And Ahaziah decides, hey, I'm king, he's my uncle, he's injured. Okay? Let me go visit him. Okay? This is the same battle in which Ahab was killed, and Joram here is wounded. Okay? So he's back in the land of Israel. He's trying to recover, and King Ahaziah goes to visit him. So that's where we start. Now we go to chapter 9. And Elisha, the prophet, called one of the children of the prophets, said unto him, Gird up thy loins, and take this box of oil in thy hand, and go to Ramoth Gilead. And when thou comest thither, look out there Jehu, the son of Jehoshaphat, the son of Nimshi, and go in and make him arise up from among his brethren, and carried him to an inner chamber. Then take the box of oil, and pour it on his head, and say, Thus saith the Lord, I have anointed thee king over Israel. Then open the door and flee, and tarry not. So the young man, even the young man the prophet, went to Ramoth Gilead, and when he came, behold, the captains of the host were sitting, and he said, I have an errand unto thee, O captain. And Jehu said, Unto which of all us? And he said, To thee, O captain. So we stop there, just for a minute here, just to pick things up. So now we're jumping somewhere over here, not even in relation to these guys. We're going to a totally different place. Here we go back to Elisha. One of the promises that Elijah, or was responsible for doing, was anointing Jehu, king of Israel. Elijah obviously is dead. So that means that job has now fallen to Elisha. And Elisha here nominates another young prophet and tells the prophet, here, you take this box in which there is this precious oil. And this is the oil of consecration in which you are pour onto the head of Jehu, thereby anointing him the new king of Israel. This is of the Lord. This is not of me. This is not of anybody else. This is of the Lord. So he does that. He goes to this place where there is a meeting of the captains in some type of tent, probably for war, for battle. And this prophet goes in and he says, I've got an errand for you. And they say, well, which one of us do you have an errand for? And he says, you, pointing at Jehu. Okay? And so then, verse 6, and he arose and went into the house, and he poured the oil on his head, and said unto him, Thus saith the Lord God of Israel, I have anointed thee king over the people of Israel, even over Israel. And thou shalt smite the house of Ahab thy master, that I may avenge the blood of my servants, of all the servants of the Lord, at the hand of Jezebel. And the whole house of Ahab shall perish. And I will cut off from Ahab him that pisseth against the wall, and him that is shut up and left in Israel. And I will make the house of Ahab like the house of Jeroboam the son of Nebat, and like the house of Baasha son of Ahijah. And the dogs shall eat Jezebel in the portion of Jezreel, and there shall be none to bury her. And he opened the door and fled. I should go back here. I'm getting a little ahead of myself there. Jezebel wasn't dead. Ahab's dead, but not Jezebel. All right. So he finally goes in, and he takes the oil, and he pours it on top of the head of Jehu, making him the new king of Israel. This servant, or this prophet, he immediately flees. He gets out of there. Maybe he's afraid for his life or something else. He doesn't know. Maybe he's afraid that Jehu will capture him, so because he might spread the message, because the message is that Jehu is king, and obviously this guy is really the king. So if this guy finds out that Jehu has now been anointed the king, he's going to send out his army after Jehu over here. Okay? So this is secret. This is done in secret. They can't let the word leak out. Maybe that's why that man flees. He's afraid for his life. But anyways, the rest of these men, they keep it private. They keep it within the meeting. And they say, Jehu is king. They shout that out, but they don't let anyone know. So they don't let anyone sneak out and make a message over to Joram, even if he has some of his friends there. Jehu, he doesn't waste a day. Okay? He doesn't waste any time at all. Okay? He rides straight to Jezreel, which is where King Joram is, and King Ahaziah are there. Okay? And he goes straight there. And as he's on the way there, obviously there's watchmen up in the palace towers, and they look out and they see a cloud of dust in the distance. So that piques their attention. And they begin to look out and see, and slowly but surely they begin to make out, and they say, aha! I know the driving of that man anywhere. That man is driving out of control. His chariot could fall apart at any minute because of the way that he drives. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the driving of the captain Jehu. Okay. So the watchman, because he thinks it's Jehu, one of his captains, doesn't think of any danger, and they go out to meet him. King Joram should have been alerted to danger, but he didn't. And so he sends another horseman to Jehu with the same result. Is it peace? And Jehu orders him, get to the back behind me, man, and let's go to the palace. It should have been a little bit of a clue to Joram. Boy, why aren't my messengers returning? But he didn't. Okay? He wasn't alert. So, both King Joram and King Ahaziah went out in their chariots to meet him. Okay? Verse 21, and Joram said, make ready, and his chariot was made ready. And Joram, king of Israel, and Ahaziah, king of Judah, went out each in his chariot. And they went out against Jehu and met him in the portion of Naboth the Jezreelite. Notice they're meeting in the field of Naboth. The same field stolen from Naboth by Ahab and Jezebel. Okay? And so they come together here. Verse 22, and it came to pass when Joram saw Jehu, he said, is it peace, Jehu? And he answered, what peace, so long as the whoredoms of thy mother Jezebel and her witchcrafts are so many? And Joram turned his hands and fled and said to Ahaziah, there is treachery, O Ahaziah. And Jehu drew a bow with his full strength and smote Joram between his arms, and the arrow went out at his heart, and he sunk down in his chariot. Then said Jehu to Bidkar, the captain, take up and cast him in the portion of the field of Naboth the Jezreelite. For remember how that when I and thou rode together after Ahab his father the Lord laid this burden upon him. Surely I have seen yesterday the blood of Naboth and the blood of his sons, saith the Lord, and I will requite thee in this plat, saith the Lord. Now therefore take and cast him into the plat of ground according to the word of the Lord. But when Ahaziah the king of Judah saw this, he fled by the way of the garden house. So, what happens here? They think Jehu is coming in peace. They ride out in their chariots to meet him. They find out that it is not. And when Joram shouts out treachery to King Ahaziah so that he turns and his chariot tries to get away, King Joram does, and Jehu pulls back on his bow and arrow, and into the back of King Joram he lets an arrow fly so it goes through and pierces through his heart and kills him right there in his chariot. And then they discuss what to do with the body. They leave it there in the field of Naboth. They'll probably take care of it later. Jehu turns, whips around in his chariot, and he needs to destroy the whole house of Ahab. This man is related to Ahab. He needs to hunt down Ahaziah. So when Ahaziah escapes and takes off in his chariot, that's where we see in verse 27, and Jehu followed after him and said, smite him also in the chariot. And they did so at the going up to Gur, which is by Balaam. And he fled to Megiddo and died there. And his servants carried him in a chariot to Jerusalem and buried him in his sepulchre with his fathers in the city of David. And in the 11th year of Joram, the son of Ahab, began Ahaziah to reign over Judah. So that tells a little bit there. Okay? So what happens? Well, Jehu rides after Ahaziah. Okay? And Ahaziah is also wounded. And he goes to Samaria and he hides there, but Jehu's men find him, they capture him, and they bring him back to Megiddo where he dies and he's buried with the kings. Okay? Skip ahead to verse 30 there. And when Jehu was come to Jezreel, Jezebel heard of it, and she painted her face and tied her head and looked out at a window. And as Jehu entered in at the gate, she said, had Zimri peace who slew his master? And he lifted up his face to the window and said, who is on my side? Who? And there looked out to him 2 or 3 eunuchs. And he said, throw her down. So they threw her down, and some of her blood was sprinkled on the wall and on the horses, and he trode her underfoot. And when he was come in, he did eat and drink, and said, go, see now this cursed woman, and bury her, for she is a king's daughter. And they went to bury her, but found her no more of her than the skull, and the feet, and the palms of her hands. Wherefore they came again and told him, and he said, this is the word of the Lord, which he spake by his servant Elijah the Tishbite, saying, in the portion of Jezreel shall dogs eat the flesh of Jezebel, and the carcass of Jezebel shall be as dung upon the face of the field in the portion of Jezreel, so that they shall not say, this is Jezebel. So, Ahaziah is dead. Joram is dead. Ahab is dead. And now, back at the palace, Jezebel hears the word. She gets the message of what's going on. Her son Joram is dead. Ahaziah, maybe she doesn't know if he's dead or he's being chased after. And she knows what Jehu has to do. Jehu has to kill her. So what does she do? She paints herself up. She puts all of her beautiful makeup on because she still views herself as the queen. She thinks she's important. She wants to die. She's worried about her outward appearance, not her inward heart of bowing down on her knees and asking the Lord to forgive her for killing God's prophets and everything else. She's still concerned at the end of her life about her appearance. Okay? So as Jehu comes to the palace, okay, she tries one last time. It's off or not. Jehu asks the question, who is on the Lord's side? Who's on my side? And some servants there in the palace, okay, they take her, they throw her out the window. Her body smacks on the ground, splits open, blood spatters onto the wall and on the rocks. It's a gruesome, grisly death. Jehoram, taking his chariot and horse, ride right over top of them, we read there. Okay? And what does he do? He goes into the house and he feasts. He eats the food because he is now the new king of Israel. Okay? And after sitting there for a while, he thinks, oh yeah, what about her body? We should probably give it a decent burial. She was the queen. So he sends some servants out and they go look, and already the dogs in the area have begun ripping apart her body and there's hardly anything left. They have been feasting on her body. And it was too late. Only her skull and probably a few bits and pieces of her were left. So the word of Elijah comes true. The only thing that will be left is that she shall be as dung. Obviously the feces that the dogs leave out on the field is all that's going to be left of Jezebel. Okay? So God's prediction had come true about what would happen to Jezebel. Jezebel who only thinks of herself and what she can have on this earth and not of the Lord. So God here is using an ungodly man, Jehu, to carry out his purposes. God does that many times. He uses the ungodly to fulfill his purposes so that they come to pass. It's something that we have to understand too. The Lord is using men, wicked men like even President Trump with many wives and many other sins. He's put him in a place of power and God is using him. God is using many wicked men like that even today. But here he's using Jehu. So if we look now at the house of Ahab, we see a few things. We see her being left. And we might say, well, we really don't care about the kings of Israel. Who's the next king? Over here we now have King Jehu, because it's not important who becomes the next king. It doesn't have to be a continued line of generations. But the question in our minds might be over here, now what's going to happen? Has the line of Christ been cut off? King Joram is dead. King Ahaziah is dead. Does he have any offspring left? Does he have any offspring left? We have to see. We have to find out. And that's what we'll kind of see in our next lesson.